Hi, welcome to the LAMC Future of Touring panel. My name's Andy Wood from Comono in London and from La Linea, the London Latin Music Festival. We've got a great panel today with us of really experienced promoters to talk about the future of touring, which is a big question for us all at the moment. In London, I seem to be having two kinds of conversations at the moment. One with agents and venues where we've just been rescheduling existing shows and tours, and we're now doing some of that for the second time. And we're assuming that the deals made in the old normal will still function in the new normal. But the other conversations I'm having with people who anticipate that the new normal won't really look anything like the old one, and that most of the old venues and business models will not be fit for the new purpose. So with this conversation about the future of touring, we're aiming to touch on all the bases, from what happens with maybe a worst case, which could involve any combination of no vaccine for COVID, a global economic depression and a further lockdown after an early opening up, through to the possibility that the new normal really does in fact look a lot like the old normal after a fairly gradual curve of opening up. There's of course the possibility that other global pandemics could be on the horizon, and there was anyway a growing debate about how live music touring would function in response to global warming, and that will remain the background to any recovery we have. Maybe we'll be forced to grasp a lot of those global warming issues sooner than anticipated, when so many airlines might have disappeared and international travel may be seen by some as a dangerous luxury. So it's a good point to think about what it's worth saving from current models for audiences, artists and promoters, and also what we might be prepared to give up. So introducing our panel of hugely experienced promoters, we have Jordi Puig of Ocesa, based in Mexico City, director of Vive Latino Festival in the DF, and which would have happened in Spain for the first time this year. Phil Rodriguez of Move Concerts, based in Miami, but promoting tours and concerts across most of Latin America with some of the most well-known artists. And Sebastian de la Barra of Lotus Producciones, based in Santiago de Chile and also responsible for Lollapalooza in Chile. So I guess we've all been very busy in the last couple of months since COVID hit. What actions have each of you had to take so far in immediate response? And how do you see the next year panning out for you? Phil, maybe start with you.
I, like everybody else, we moved every single show we had for this year until next year. We had a few that we had in November and December, and we decided not to take the risk. Touching on a couple of your points, not only in terms of if the market would be open, which we had our doubts, but even just in terms of airlines, freight, and all that. There's so many things that need to be ironed out. So we moved all our dates till next year. We're trying to front load the younger demographic shows for the earlier part of the year. Try to put in the second half of next year the shows that we had for an older demographic, thinking those are going to be the most careful. Quite frankly, I think everybody's driving in the dark. Nobody knows what's ahead of us. This is the first for everybody. You know, you touched on several points, not only the flights, airlines, but what's going to be the purchasing power of the punters once this is open. What's going to be the economic reality? I do believe that, number one, I think South America is very resilient, because we've been through so many shitstorms throughout the decades, whether it's political, devaluations, riot, whatever. So I think there's a certain resilience in the continent that may not apply in other markets that are more used to a constant line, a certain medium. That's one. And also I believe that the good thing, I think, there's a certain tendency to kind of forget. So I think as the months wear on, people are going to go beyond this, and we're going to get back to the normal. I was having a conversation with Sebastian yesterday, and we were talking about some of this stuff. And you know, when people talk about the new normal, it's hard for me to visualize a new normal in what we do. I believe that live shows are one of the few, if not the only, tribal experience that human beings have. And for me to envision a concert or festival experience with social distancing and masks on and all that is just I, I, I can't compute. It just doesn't sink in. So one thing that I've been seeing, and I'm sure everybody else has, a lot of the polls that have been taken. As you get to the younger demographics, a large part of them are ready to jump in and get back at it. I have a 24-year-old daughter that's doing her master's in New York City. She came down, obviously, or doing her courses online. She likes to go see her shows up there, indie shows, all types of shows. And she was telling me the other day, she goes, Dad, I kind of miss going to see the shows. And the same way she feels, like I'm sure there's, many out there. So, but I think the biggest question mark that we're all going to face is, like I said, the airlines, the permits you may need to travel, cargo, what additional costs we may have in terms of any sort of measures that may be asked from us. And all of this, and I think everybody will agree, I see bureaucrats making decisions on our behalf. When I see people saying, do a show with 20% capacity, the numbers don't add up. Unless you're doing it for marketing purposes or to complete your agreement with a sponsor or something, I don't see that. I think we have to scratch our way back to where we were, and hopefully people will be more conscious about what they do, which I think is just normal in terms of washing your hands and that kind of thing, which I think goes a long way. So anyways, it's that. We're driving forward, but in total darkness.
Yeah. Sebastian, what about you? What have you had to do, and how do you see the next year panning out?
Well, yeah, I feel very similar with Phil. We are in a similar situation in Chile right now. We are in the half of the very strict lockdown in Santiago for the last 2 weeks, and we are expecting at least 2 more weeks of 100% lockdown, even though we had some partial lockdowns in the city in the past weeks. We moved most of the shows from next year. We still, with Coachella, Lola South America, we are maybe the last hope for the live music industry in the world, that we still have some dates, as everyone knows, for late November, Coachella, October. But in the end, we are watching this and evaluating options weekly. Like in a weekly basis, trying to understand where it will go. This observing Italy, Spain, the US, etc. Like Europe and the US, of course, you are further in this path than South America. We are now facing the worst part of the COVID. So we are watching basically and observing. I guess in the next few weeks, we will have more visibility to understand whether it is 100% impossible, which it is, of course, feels unlikely, but still there's some hope for the end of the year. But then the question goes to next year: when is gonna be the month where we will be able to reopen globally the live music industry, touring, people traveling, etc. Nobody knows. Yesterday with Phil, we were just, of course, talking about some of things like what will happen in Brazil with or without Carnival. Like, nobody can imagine like big countries like Brazil without a Carnival. So we hope that early 21 will be open for business everywhere. Sports. It is the economic impact is so big. The disaster would be so big if this continues month by month, that part of us in our company, we see, of course, this is a health crisis in the hospitals, etc., of the health systems in the countries, but then the economic impact is much bigger. So in the end, this has to stop, and we have to go to normal. We don't believe, or we don't think it is an interesting business model. This driving concerts, it's kind of boring, weird for the music fans. I would not go to a driving experience concert. And the business model, whether you have big sponsors or otherwise, I think it's an impossible task to achieve. So I think everyone here and everywhere else is like trying to go digital with streaming, from the global citizen to smaller things, and everyone is exploring now this path for the upcoming months.
Mm. And Jordi, what have you had to do so far, and how do you see the next year panning out?
Well, it's a pleasure share some time with you guys. We in March in Mexico we had lucky. Honestly, having the Vive Latino Festival. The Vive Latino Festival happened on March 13 and 14, and was maybe the last massive show in not only in Mexico, maybe in all Latin America, and maybe in Europe also. Was a really complicated decision, was a pretty tough week, but the reality was that in that moment, the health authorities told us that was not the moment yet to close. And we did the festival. It looks at this like long time ago, but was just a few months ago, and 120,000 people were together. And fortunately, the time gave the local authority the reason, because Vive Latino wasn't any reason to grow up this moment or this pandemic. Then we close everything as all the countries have done, and we just we don't handle the Vive Latino only. We handle in Mexico, in Ocesa, we produce maybe 20-25 festivals per year, and after that we close everything. We move everything, not only festivals, obviously headline shows also. And as Seba just mentioned, we move everything for this second semester of the year. And now there is a lot of uncertainty of what's going to happen on this year. Every day, everything changed, but all looks that this year doesn't look really well. Besides, as you know, our industry is one of the last ones in the list. Unfortunately, our spirit is put people together, and that's exactly what we cannot do right now. So it's a little frustrating, because it's the last item of the list, and sometimes the music industry has this vision that is just the festival, but as you know, the festival or the concert creates a lot of things around, no? The hotel and the mobility and the airplane and the restaurants around the event, etc., etc. But unfortunately, everything around the festival, it's attached with that. We put people together and has this tribal experience, as Phil mentioned. So right now, in the future looks pretty uncertain, to be honest. Only thing we hope is that we can get back together soon. And I cannot be more agree with Phil and with Seba that personally, I don't see a different way to see the music business or the live music business, but only to improve it, not to make these changes of social distances. And it's pretty difficult to recreate or to reproduce this magic that we fortunately are involved, this magic that happens when an artist sits in front of thousands or hundreds or a lot of people. No? This magic is pretty difficult to reproduce, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, just a quick question, small question on this. In the UK at the moment, social distancing is 2 meters. So where people are looking to do shows, they're calculating on 2 meters as being the distance. Is that the distance that each of you are working with in your base territory? Is that what you're told? If you did want to do shows, how far apart does your audience have to be?
Well, you know, it's interesting you mention that, because yes, 2 meters seems to have been the international measure for that. Today, I just read an article from some experts that it's not enough. It should be further. So, you know, everything, every projection, every piece of information that we've received over the last 3.5 months keeps on changing. Again, I'm going to throw a few hand grenades in the bus here. But I mean, I think in certain markets, if not a lot of them, this has gotten mixed up with politics. So it's the medical situation, it's a political situation, it's an economic situation, and it's all mixed up, and it doesn't help us see clearly into what we have to do. And I think the same way as with 9/11 or terrorism, you know, I mean, we're going to end up with stuff that is going to be imposed on us, that may end up being silly, but it's going to be imposed on us, especially in our territories. I mean, all of us care about our fans and their experience. I have no doubt about it. That's I know in my company we've implemented things where we have directors and people line up with the lines and go to the nosebleed seats just so they can see what the experience is like for the punter paying the cheapest ticket. So we're very concerned about the experience. But sometimes I do find that we're held by security riders to things that have nothing to do with our territory. And still we have to do them, and it's an additional cost. It's you know, you can't bring computers or laptops in your knapsack in a bag. You know, we have young shows. Some kids are coming from school directly to the show. So I mean, I think we're going to end up being held to requested to do things in the security rider and cost for the shows that, quite frankly, you know, are just going to add to our burden and really not applicable. But at any rate, that's just my 2 cents.
Okay. Also, has the current situation then, I mean, I think you all seem to be waiting or anticipating that normality will return to a degree. But I mean, has the current situation inspired any creative ideas, solutions that you can see for now and for the future when the live music experience might be different? I mean, anything that you've seen in terms of the way people have been using digital, if there's any prospect that you can see for there being some sort of transition period back to normality in terms of the shows that you might present, or anything good that you can take from this?
I would say that we are in the dark, as Phil was just mentioning. At least in Chile, any authority, anyone from the live music industry has been talking about potential changes in the law of this 30% for indoor-outdoor venues that we've been seeing in Spain, in Italy, like in some countries of Europe. There's like a mapping situation where everyone is speculating how to reopen every 1 or 2 weeks in this summer, right? Here, everyone is just dealing with the worst time of the pandemic. Nobody is talking about our industry. As Jordi said, we're going to be the last to come back to work. So our own industry is going to suffer a lot. All the artists, all the freelance people, the vendors, everyone. And right now, we've been speculating about whether the arena in Santiago and other theaters and indoor shows might happen for less capacity, but nobody knows if it's going to be 30, 40, 50, 60%. But again, it doesn't work for the business model for anyone unless the artist really wants to come to play South America for cheap fees, which I cannot imagine that because of the cost of coming down to South America. So in the end, I guess that we have to wait a few months to understand better how Europe is going to operate in this new normality of the upcoming 3, 4, 5, 6 months, let's say, and then how this will hit South America later on, right? I mean, everyone is doing some streaming, but then you get bored of maybe watching the same local bands doing streamings, and people is just waiting for this massive comeback where, again, I agree with Phil. We are watching in the TV news of the drive-in electronic parties in Germany, drive-in shows in some other places, like in Denmark. But in the end, it doesn't feel great for this live perspective of a tribe gathering, right? So.
Yeah.
So right now, authorities are not talking about our industry at all. I mean, we are not a priority for them, sadly, as you have seen Germany, other prime ministers taking care of the culture in a better way.
Sure. Jordi?
Yeah, I do believe we should consider and explore this alternative of the streaming world, and things have happened. But yeah, we can't forget that what we do is entertainment outside home. At the end of the day, it's entertainment outside home, and all this digital streaming situation, which is good and it's valid, that it's something that we should consider because we have commitments with the audience. We need to maintain our brands alive somehow, and obviously sponsorship. But at the end, is not the same. I mean, my opinion belongs to other box. The streaming world belongs to other box that sometimes it's an addition of what we do, but it's pretty difficult to think that the streaming it's something that can make a substitution of the entertainment live business. As Seba says, these drive-in situations, but not only about the feeling, it's something that the economics are difficult to square, because as you know, if you put 1,000 people in a certain area, you just can't put 200 cars. So it's not only a difficult thing to do, it's a difficult thing to do on financially. So I don't know, I think it's all this, it's pretty dark yet, and personally I still believe that it's just a matter of wait and try to get back on the same fashion that we were, or better.
I mean, as you say, we all work in the live show business, and the fundamental thing for us is to bring the audience into one space and to share that moment. And I mean, there are a couple of things that I've seen that are interesting, which I think almost sort of bypass promoters in it, because obviously if you have an artist, then their relationship with their audience through their stream show, it can be the same show anywhere in the world. And so it doesn't need a local promoter. There's not necessarily any connection there. And it's also how you add the value to that stream. I mean, there's some interesting things happening in the UK at the moment with a UK-based artist, Laura Marling, who is doing a show in a venue without an audience, for which they've limited the number of seats that they're selling. And you can only, so these are virtual seats, you can only see the show at one point on that day that you bought the show for. And I've heard of other people doing this where they're selling a number of seats for a recording every night. And again, you have to make that appointment to go. But it's very hard to see that digital model involving a live promoter. It's not a live event. And it's the same thing time after time. Other things I've heard people talking about is maybe if you only have a capacity of 30% of what you had, maybe you could sell the full capacity of tickets, have some sort of lottery for the tickets, and then compensate the people who didn't come with, I don't know, a T-shirt or some sort of digital package or some sort of download that other people didn't go. But I suppose, I mean, these things seem like they're kind of moving the chairs on the deck of the Titanic. But I suppose they're only worth considering if we think that maybe we could be such a long way from the new normal that maybe we would have to find this different model. But yeah, we'd see on that. And the other thing I was thinking about, which is interesting with all the postponements that everybody is doing, the lineups for 2021 are going to look, well, for most people, would be the lineup they would have done in 2020. So in terms of the cycles of album release, tour, and promotion, and so on that artists would do, there's quite a change there, isn't there? I mean, are you thinking about that, how that will happen with your festivals for next year, with your tours for next year? Are you mostly looking to do the same events that you would have done this year?
Yes, primarily that. I mean, I think at this point in time, unless somebody knows something different, most agents that I've spoken to, nobody's working on additional tours or dates for next year. Everybody's still just basically rescheduling and trying to work their way out of this hole. So other than what we've rescheduled or tours that we had already been talking for next year in the past, there's nothing new that's come on the plate. Let me just go back to something you said, which is absolutely true. I think the whole streaming thing doesn't involve promoters because the content isn't ours. I think it's important for artists to maintain a relationship with their fans while they cannot tour. So that whole streaming thing, I think it's important from that perspective. I do want to just point one thing out is I think there were some good things that came out of this for all of us. And and at least in a lot of my territories, it strengthened the promoters associations. For the first time, everybody really came together because we had some serious shit to deal with. So that was really important for us, number one. Number two, we were able to show the authorities what an incredible impact we have on the economy. Number three, we came together with other industries that shared the same problems that we had to come together as a united force. I can't speak for Jordi or for Chile, but for instance, in Brazil, we found an alliance with 8 travel agencies. We found an alliance with obviously all the production people. We found alliances with hotels. When we all came together and lobbied the government, which led to having refunds delayed for a year, not only for shows, but for travel agencies and airlines. It only happened because we came in as a force of hundreds of thousands of people, of members. So I think that was an upside. Another upside that I'm sure Jordi and Sebastian and everybody else is doing is this is a moment to pull back and do a little carpentry work. You know, the stuff you never do around the house, to do around work. Now we can, normally you're in this vortex of work. Now we can sit and analyze what can we do better, what we don't have to do moving forward. So I think this has been a cleansing thing in a way. So as horrible as it is, and it is horrible, there's been a couple of upsides to this that I think are going to come in handy for all of us and for the industry as a whole as we move forward. So just wanted to throw that into the mix.
Sure. I mean, that was really leads on to my next question, which is really what are those changes? What are the things that maybe will be done differently that possibly are forced upon us, but maybe other choices that now we've got that time for reflection we might make?
Well, quickly, I just want to go back to the past question, but I think it's important to again say what Phil just mentioned, that we are getting stronger as promoter in different countries. We are not as lucky as in Brazil that you unite with all the tourism industry, which is huge, and you were able to do what you are doing with the refunds and go back to the government. That's strong, but yeah, we've been trying to demonstrate with all the musicians and all our live music industry that we are important for the happiness of the people and for the economic also strength of the country somehow. You know, we impact in Chile with a lot of jobs, etc. And also, Andy, what you were mentioning in the beginning, I think it is important to mention that somehow there are some opportunities with the gaming, like younger audiences that are related to the gaming. We saw what happened with Travis Scott, right? Which it was huge. And yeah, at Fortnite. And I think those kind of things, we might see some opportunities, some new businesses developments in the midterm with some digital festivals, or the integration of the digital world somehow between participate in this live music festival digital world, combined with the reality of the real festivals. You know, you might earn some points, and then you use those points in the real festival after you were playing in this game of this. So I don't know, those kind of things might come up in the future. Who knows? But I think those kind of things, especially for the younger audiences and for the younger content, I think it's going to be interesting to see where it goes, because in the upcoming 2 years, when we might see all the virtual reality world again popping up stronger than ever. You know, we've been talking about that for some time here in my company, but we never thought we really have to start working on this as strong as we have to work right now, because we don't know the future, right?
And Jordi, what do you see in terms of maybe new opportunities, new ideas coming from this?
Yeah, I mean, I am completely agree that sometimes the day by day and how this business demands your attention, sometimes you are not capable to see clearly other opportunities or some things that can get into in the addition of the improvement. And these times are a good opportunity to see that, to see how all this digital streaming world can go to the live event and improve it and get better. This time can give us the opportunity to think how the experience can be better. Obviously, we always try to have a nice experience, but maybe it's moment to have a better place for all these, all the sanitation thing, all the cleaning thing in a big festival, more porta-johns, more places to wash the hands, more. It's a good moment to think, and when we come back, hopefully soon, make the things better. Especially in our territories, we realize how vulnerable are the people that work in the music business. Most of the jobs that happens are freelances. And as you know, pues in Mexico or Brazil or Chile, pues there's not exactly a union or something that protect them. And this is another thing that we need to make a serious thought of what happens with all these people that if they don't have a show during the weekend, it's simple. They don't have an income, and that's it.
They don't eat.
And that doesn't happen in a lot of industries. USA is different. They have a really strong union, but not in our territories. And I don't know if that's positive or negative, but it's pretty tough to see right now how all the people that work on music, the clock is ticking, unfortunately. They don't have nothing to do. They need to bake cakes and sell to the neighbor, because that part is pretty difficult also.
Yeah.
You know, just our office in Colombia, to their merit, they did a project called La Morada to generate income to buy what they call the basic basket of food and toiletries for crews in Colombia. Because like Jordi said, in our part of the world, it isn't that they can't pay their rent or their light bill. It's that they're not eating. It's that their families are not eating. So this is really tough. And again, I'm going to throw another hand grenade here. And I was speaking to Sebastian. When I hear these people saying, "Oh, we're in this together. We're one." No, we're not. No, we're not. I see people that are, you know, I'm blessed. You know, I got a beautiful home, but I mean, there's people that are not eating. So, you know, when I hear people say, "No, we got to stay home," yeah, you're in a mansion, you're doing well, you're okay. But I know people that work as loaders and all, their families are not eating, and we're trying to help them out. But I mean, what Jordy brought out in our part of the world, I mean, this is basic, real shit. You know, this isn't, I can't pay for my cable this month. So yes, and I think that has to be put into the balance, and that's, I'm bullish about South America kicking off. And for various reasons. Remember, we're the last. In other words, the virus went Asia, Europe. You got it first. North America, South America. So, like Sebastian said, we're going to be seeing what solutions worked in front of us. That's number one. But number two, I was speaking to an agent about some dates that we have in March. He goes, Phil, what do you think? I said, well, look, I have no idea, but I'm going to use common sense. Our summer vacations are December, January, and February. Our major cities are inland. If people cannot go to the beach in December or January, there are going to be riots. And like Sebastian said, if Brazil doesn't have a carnival, which it had during the Spanish influenza, World War I, World War II, whatever, there are going to be riots. So I believe that by December, because of the necessity of the economics and people going hungry and having to work, and because remember, summer, even the poorest person can go to the beach and get away from the hot summer in the city. And so that's where I feel that I'm bullish. Now, we're dependent on at least the international artists saying, let's go for it. And like I said, we have an artist quote. One thing that we are doing, to your past question, is we picked up management for the #1 artist in Argentina, a guy named Abel Pintos. But in this situation, we're looking at also all local opportunities because of that. Because like Sebastian said, it is expensive to come down to South America. It is expensive to travel in South America. You can't drive around. You have to fly. Your freight has to fly. So we're looking at more local events, local content, local projects to fill in the gaps and to prepare ourselves. The other thing which has been really important for all of us in different degrees, the exchange rate. In Brazil, we had a 40% devaluation from offers that we sent before this. I know Colombia had a devaluation, especially when, I mean, in Mexico, when the price of petroleum plummeted. Chile also went up, went down a little bit. So that's something else that we have to throw into the mix with everything. And quite frankly, I'm sitting back to see when everything settles and see if I have to go back and renegotiate any deals or not. We're going to take it to the maximum threshold of pain that we can take. But at a certain point, you renegotiate or you cancel. You can't offer the same guarantee if your tickets are 40% less than your gross is.
100%.
So,
I think you agree, Phil, that the offer needs to change in the future because of local cost, all the health or the sanitization cost, plus the exchange rate changing in most countries of Latin America. Yeah.
You know, I think a big impact is really going to be what's going to be the overall economic situation. America right now, you have 40 million people unemployed, for example.
Huge.
That's the largest unemployment. This is worse than the Great Depression. I was speaking to a major manager of a top arena act in America, and he was telling me on the second leg of the U.S. tour, he said, I don't think we could charge what we were charging on the last tour. They were going up to $500 tickets. So what he did with the nationwide promoter he was using, he said, okay, look, whatever we drop on the GP, on the gross potential, we drop on the guarantee. So if we drop 10%, we'll drop 10% on the guarantee. So I think there is going to be some corrections. You know, we've had this discussion before. I'm not, you know, I've dabbled in festivals throughout the years I've been in. I'm not dependent on any festivals, but I've always said, it gets to a point where I think there's so many festivals, and now you're paying guarantees that are mind-boggling. Because if you don't have the content, you don't have a festival, so all of a sudden you're over a barrel. And your business plan is, okay, I'm going to get this act for $750. You end up paying $1.2 million or $1.3 million because you need them. So I don't know. I hope there's. Again, I'm not dependent on festivals for my business model, but I hope that there's a correction there too. Because I mean, the guarantees that I see in festivals are ridiculous. Ridiculous. And it's the same guys playing the same goddamn festivals. If you tell me, oh, this is unique play, it's an exclusive play in the year, maybe. He just played 20 other festivals, you know. So yes, I hope that there's a correction due to various things. And the other thing which I'm going to be curious about, which is important to all of us, and in South America, and it's a big part of our equation, is sponsorship. I mean, I'm curious to see what these corporations are going to come to the table with the next year, because, you know, with certain exceptions, a lot of them have gotten hurt also. So yeah, I mean, to me, the new reality, at least in the short term, is going to be that exchange rates, sponsorship income, and discretionary income with the punters.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose to a degree, what you're saying as well is that you have the deals that you made before that form the basis of what you're doing now, but when those begin to pan out and you're looking at the new shows that then you're taking on, then yeah, it's a completely different reality, and it's kind of how those risks might be shared. I mean, you know, you don't want to be in the position where everything falls on the promoter because suddenly everything shuts down again, but deposits were paid, and it's kind of another minefield, I guess.
Yeah, and remember something, any shows that we put on sale, we can still tweak the skating a little bit, maybe not to gain the same ground we lost, but maybe a little bit. But we had several shows that were already sold out at an exchange rate from before. What do I do there?
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm going to wait a few months because I think some things are going to settle. But I think at some point, you know, there may be a reason to renegotiate.
Yeah. I just need to open out to some of the questions from delegates here. So maybe, Geordie, if I could ask you this to begin on this one. Roger in Chicago asks, how do you think the role of the local smaller promoter is going to change once we're able to do shows again? Do you think they will be the first promoters doing shows, as people are talking about first doing shows in smaller venues? Historically, those promoters are key for artists' first shows as they grow. Geordie, how do you think things will be for smaller promoters? And will shows begin with them?
I do believe, I don't know in terms of health decisions, no? If open air shows are gonna be first that a club, for example. Honestly, I don't know. But what I know is that this new reality, obviously, all the local talent and all the emerging talent, I do believe would have an opportunity, because everything is gonna be like a little bit to a restart. And what Phil was mentioned about all these economics, I'm sure that would change a bit. The ticket price is pretty sensible. It's almost a good way to feel the temperature of a society, of the social economics. So all these clubs and independent promoters and small shows live on this capable economic. It's not a 500 ticket show of a huge artist. So I do believe, and besides, in my opinion, people will retake the local day by day again. At least in Mexico, there's a lot of people that are thinking to go back to the original town, maybe that they grew up. And it's happening in Spain. In Spain, this summer, everybody's gonna go to the little town that the father or the mother born. So that's a good opportunity for the small clubs, in my opinion. So I believe that in this get back to the normal, all these local small promoters have a good opportunity to promote local talent and local emerging talent.
Sebastian?
I agree with Jordi. I think even though some smaller promoters might disappear because they don't have the leverage to survive 1 year without medium-sized shows, the small shows, the local talent promoters in clubs, I think they have the opportunity to keep working and offer the opportunity to offer jobs, to all the freelance world. While we wait for the reopening of the tourism to the international tourism, and yeah, I think there's an opportunity for sure there for those smaller promoters, but still, I think everything fall into this big same pot where everyone wants to have this massive reopening, because it won't be that easy for them. We might see some bigger promoters doing some smaller shows in the meanwhile. Of course, people like us, like we do festivals, we do big headline shows in arenas and stadiums, but we also work with local promoters in our festivals, and we might also do some smaller shows during this year, because we have to promote something, right? So in the end, maybe those smaller promoters, they might face more competition. Who knows? But
yeah, I'm just trying to get through a couple more questions. Anastasia from Los Angeles asks, what are your views of women in touring crews, and have you seen more women in different roles on the road? Phil?
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, I've seen a lot, and they're fantastic. I think our culture has been changing on that, and believe me, I'm an old dog, been doing this for 4 decades, and so I've seen the snapshots changing a lot. Queen, as a production manager, is a woman. She's amazing. Just did some dates towards the end of last year with Shawn Mendes. We had part of this crew, quite a few were women. Same thing with Ed Sheeran. Absolutely, absolutely. And let me go back quickly to the last question. I just want to say, I think there could be is a renaissance for independent promoters. I think this thing is gonna, because I think the big promoters are gonna come back a lot more risk adverse. And the reason they were dominant before is because they were taking massive risks. So I think if for the independent promoters that have a good reputation, that played it right, that held tight, that didn't have any debt, that didn't have a big overhead, this is a great opportunity for them to come back. Mm-hmm. And I say that as an indie promoter.
Yeah. And Sebastian or Jordi on the role of women on the road?
I mean, definitely I've seen more and more every day, more women involved on the backstage duties, and especially, as you know, on logistics. Every band and every production, logistics wise, the women are very, very, very efficient, and in my team at Vive Latino, I'm sure I can say that there's maybe more women than men on the team. So I always have seen, to be honest, a lot of women around me working on the show. Not really, maybe, but there's a lot of tasks that have done by women.
I agree. Same as in our company, we might be in the core team 50 and 50% between women and men, but also in the backstage area, when we promote festivals like Lollapalooza, we see a lot of women, and they are more efficient and more creative. And I think this is something that we are facing and we are seeing. And in the touring side, we still have less women, yes, but still you are starting to see more and more, as like Phil was saying, more bands are touring with women leading the team. I do remember, I don't know, Liz with Pearl Jam, or Lenny Kravitz, etc. They have a great team, and they work really hard and well. So yeah, happy to see them more
okay,
often.
And the last question coming in from delegates. Pedro from Guadalajara asks, As a band from Mexico with a growing buzz but no tour support, how do you suggest we help build our live audience in international markets like Latin America, England, or even within Mexico?
Well, listen, I work with Mana over the years, and they did it one step at a time. They broke Ecuador and Venezuela first by going there and playing there. You have to be lean and mean. You have to invest. I know of several artists that if you're doing well in Mexico or wherever your market is, take 10% off the top, take 15%, put it aside and have that as some fun for your own tour support. Because quite frankly, even for major artists, as we all know, tour support's not what it used to be, but it's not there. I mean, so I would suggest, and I mean, this happened with a lot of Mexican bands. Some hit Guatemala first. There's certain markets that also vibrate to what's happening in Mexico, Guatemala being one of them, Honduras, and so forth. So I would say have your little war chest so you could do this and start picking markets one at a time, one brick at a time. And now when they did it, they weren't getting airplay on the radio. At the beginning, way back in the day, the radio wouldn't play them. So certain things still apply, and I believe in the power of live.
Mm-hmm. And Jordi, from Mexico, about how you build from there as a Mexican band.
I mean, this question is the first and important question. No? How you can break, and it's pretty difficult because besides some good luck and talent, as Phil says, it's just about hard working. It's about hard working, and it's about save some money that the good markets or the markets that are starting to respond to your proposal, you need to save money there and reinvestment on the markets that nobody knows you. It's pretty difficult because this makes the curve longer, like the pandemic, no? Makes the curve longer because all the small money you are making, you need to reinvest in travel to Chile and try to do something there, and then reinvest and go to the next market and the next market. But after several years, things can get back to you. Pretty difficult, and as Phil just mentioned, the tour support, it's not exactly there. The tour support is something you need to create inside your budget, and is the only way, in my opinion.
I think in addition to that, you gotta be smart and try to see this as both angles, marketing wise, whether you hire a local PR company that can build you to be in radios, or just digital maybe for some other cases, plus going to the market, playing the market. I remember one great example in Chile, for example, is Cultura Profética, a great reggae band from Puerto Rico. They're huge now, but they I mean, I was a big fan from the early years, and they used to come to play clubs for 600 people in Santiago and Valparaiso, and then 1,000 people, and then a few thousand, and now they are an arena act, and they played Festival Viña del Mar, and they were going to play now Lollapalooza again, and so in the end, they grow from. I mean, you gotta grow organically your fan base from small shows. If you are lucky to be playing with U2 or Metallica in a support show, that's great. But then you gotta go back and play alone. You know, your theaters and build your own fan base.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so much. I mean, that's maybe a good place to end, which is at the beginning with artists starting out, as we're all kind of restarting out again in this year and into next year. I've certainly learned a lot on this panel. So thanks, Phil. Thanks, Sebastian. Thanks, Jordi. And thanks, LAMC.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you, Andy. Adios.
Adios.
Thank you, Andy.